When we think about the medium of an artwork, we might think of a category like painting, which is a medium that artists may compose out of different materials, such as oil on canvas, or ink and watercolor on paper. Delving into the processes and materials that Cheong Soo Pieng applied in his art gives us insight and ways through which we can rethink the category of painting itself. With its three-dimensional nature, the ruddy metallic sheen, as well as very textured undulations across the surface of the artwork, which depicts a scene of Little India in Singapore, we may not immediately think of it as a painting in a conventional sense of applying pigment onto a flat surface. Ordinarily, such works are ascribed the category of mixed media, which is quite general. But through the studies that we've done into Cheong's works, we were able to really identify with quite a lot of detail the specific materials that he used.
So this is the FTR equipment, which is usually used for testing organic materials and sometimes inorganic materials. So later I will acquire a spectrum from this, and this will tell us what it is. Right, so after I analyze the sample, I will get this spectrum over here. And here you can see is a fingerprint spectrum that can identify what material it is. So I can put it into the database and do a search. So from here you can tell that it is epoxy, which is a type of resin.
So Cheong applied the epoxy resin first in a liquid state, which then cooled to form the textured surface of the artwork. Considering the very meticulous step-by-step way in which Cheong composed this work, perhaps we can productively consider this artwork within the category of painting. This can potentially open up the way we think about Cheong's so-called mixed media works, particularly in the 1970s, where he was starting to incorporate materials like industrial and everyday objects. In Abstract 2, we see a compositional arrangement of thick and thin metal wires, which are arranged atop thickly painted aluminum sheets. Around them, you can see round-headed tacks, and all this rests upon yet another layer, which is an aluminum sheet wrapped over an oval board. The entire congregation rests upon a very fine, kind of gauze-like jute, which is itself mariflaged onto a wooden board.
We are going to analyze what is the metal composition. So a scanning electron microscope will give you a very highly magnified image, and then from that area we could also tell its elemental composition. So once I'm happy with this image, I will capture it. And right now it shows me that there are actually two kinds of elements. So this tells us that this metal contains copper and tin.
Even works that look like conventional paintings can actually reveal much more. Drawing Salted Fish is a work that was completed by Cheong in 1978. We can see immediately very fine, delicate lines that are detailing the composition in a style that's very reminiscent of classical Chinese ink painting, which is usually completed in the medium of ink on paper. Upon closer inspection, we discovered that Cheong actually used different types of water-based inks, painting them very skillfully onto silk.
Right now we are trying to look at Cheong Soo Pieng's artwork, this piece Drawing Salted Fish, to find out what kind of inks he used. And before that, Siwa has done a lot of reference mock-ups, and we know how each type of ink looks like under the microscope. So now let's look at Cheong Soo Pieng's ink here. So now we will look at the leaf area. Okay, and then we will do a focus. You could see from this image that it is very difficult even to take any sample because the black ink is really penetrating into the fibers. Okay, so from this image we can tell that the ink is relatively dispersed with particles and a little bit slimy, so this tells us that it is an ink stick. So now let us look at other areas, for example the signature. And from this image you can really see that it is more slimy, some kind of glossy effects. Okay, that tell us that it is a liquid ink. So as you can see, the different kinds of inks that he used suggest that his artistic technique is quite dynamic in nature.
Going beyond the surface in this way has given us a really unique opportunity to really understand both the visible and invisible process that an artist goes through to put an artwork together. In the case of Cheong, understanding his material process through technical analysis has really given us the exciting opportunity to rethink the category of painting.